Phantom Menace was. I mean, the Phantom Menace echoed A New Hope, and now The Force Awakens is kind of echoing A New Hope. And it's funny, too, not to get too far ahead, but I bought the art book, and the thing is so thick, I haven't even been through the whole thing. But in the art book, it states rather specifically that J.J. Abrams was looking to mirror A New Hope. As a matter of fact, there's a series of storyboards in the art book, and it actually shows the opening scenes that directly mirror A New Hope. I mean, you're talking about a Star Destroyer, a ship that looks like the Tantive 4, and it was JJ's every intention to open the film. And it looks like, based off the storyboards, it even says he wanted to mirror A New Hope and then have it revealed that these were new ships and different enemies and all that. Now, I'm glad he didn't do that. I thought the opening shot of the movie was great. And but it seems pretty clear that this was J.J. Abrams' intent. He wanted to reset the stage. Have it echo, have it be like a poem without being exactly the same, but let's set the stage, let's set the galaxy, let's put all the pieces in place so we can get off and running, because this movie is Disney's, first Star Wars movie, and it needs to do a lot to establish where we are headed. Now we have free reign. Now Rian Johnson and Colin Trevorrow can do whatever they want to do now that J.J. Abrams has set the stage. So again, upon the second viewing, I absolutely fell in love with it. And I've got my own theories, and I'll get into those theories here in just a moment about the film itself. But this is the one that I would take and watch over and over and over again. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to run through right now the book spoilers, because I think in order to sort of run through the film and give you my thoughts on it point by point, I want to fill in some gaps so that as we work through, I'm not sort of asking those questions. We'll fill in these questions for us because they answer a lot of things the movie didn't. It's obvious they cut a lot from the film, and Lawrence Kasdan has said before in interviews, the guy that co-wrote the movie, that he likes to allow the audience to fill in the gaps on their own, to sort of come to your natural conclusions and assumptions about things that happened. It's like Poe Dameron. How did he get? He shows up in the Black X-wing on Takodana near Maz's castle. Well, how did he get off of Jakku? Well, it gets answered later on when there's a brief exchange between him and Finn. He was thrown from it and he got away. In the novelization, they actually go and play out the scene of how he got away. And there is a toy that was released that depicts that. So I think that was a scene that was cut out. There were several action figures of characters on Jakku that didn't appear in the movie at all. And I think those exposition themes were cut out. So I think they had to remove a lot of exposition in order to get a movie that was tight, moved quickly, and allowed the fans to go and sort of, again, fill in the gaps. Somebody was complaining on another podcast that they didn't feel like there was enough time spent with Finn before he, decided he wasn't going to, kill the villagers at the beginning on Jakku, and they wanted a little bit more motivation. Who is this guy? How am I supposed to know? And I tend to look at these films and the trailers and the marketing run up the official stuff as part of the movie. In the trailers, we saw that he was a stormtrooper. In the trailers, he, specifically says, I was taught to do one thing, and now I feel like I've got nothing to fight for. In the trailers, you're shown that he's a stormtrooper deserting the First Order. So when you get to the movie and you immediately see a stormtrooper with his helmet on, you don't know who it is, but you see this person that's reluctant to go and kill these villagers, it's him because you've seen the trailer. That is a jump. That is a logical jump that I am willing to accept without any kind of backstory or exposition, because we were shown the trailer, and I, take that as being part of the film. Okay, so let's run through right now. Let's run through some of the novelization spoilers to fill in some of the backstory, and then I'll run through the movie point by point. So right now we are just about 20 minutes in, and I'll tell you what, I'll run through this in 2 minutes. So I'm actually going to wait here until we get to right about the 20-minute mark. Okay, so if you don't want to know any of the novelization spoilers, then skip ahead to, we'll say 23, and I should be done with it by then, all right? So, in the novelization, the opening is General Leia wondering where Luke is and trying to call out to him that she needs him, so she's using the Force. Snoke mentions having seen the Empire rise and fall. That was not in the film, so we know that Snoke has been around for a long time and saw the Empire rise and fall. Leia is informed of the First Order's attack on Jakku, and Poe is assumed dead. She's upset, doesn't want the First Order to find Luke before they do. She knows that BB-8 is still missing, so she asks 3PO to activate his tracker to find him. She then sends her envoy to the Senate in the Hosnian system to ask for help, explaining that she cannot go herself because while she has friends there, she would likely have an accident because there are people there that don't like her. Now, the Hosnian, I think it's Hosnian. The Hosnian system is where the Senate is now. It's where the New Republic is now, not Coruscant anymore. When the First Order launched their first attack from Starkiller Base, they wiped out the New Republic. So we'll get to that a little bit later on because that is significant. And that's what made General Hux's display of the weapon and his speech so significant. There's a scene with 3PO talking to the low-powered R2 where he's basically asking him, he's basically talking to himself. But he's asking what R2 would do because he forgot to activate BB-8's tracker before he left on the mission. He decides to send a message to activate all Resistance droids to be on the lookout for BB-8. We get a scene of Poe waking up from the crash. He has a concussion. He ends up stealing a speeder bike and speeding off, showing his skills again. Again, that's the toy that they made. Unkar Plutt, who is the character who gives Rey the rations when she turns in the stuff that she's found, he goes after Rey at Maz Kanata's castle. He found them because he had a homing device on the Falcon. Rey tries to use her blaster on him, but the safety is on. Chewie intervenes and then tears Unkar Plutt's arm off. It's at this point that the droid sees BB-8 and sends the message to the Resistance. Now, that's interesting because I was under the impression that was actually filmed. And it seems pretty clear they moved the scene because there's a moment when Rey goes to use her blaster right before Kylo Ren abducts her, and it doesn't work because the safety was on. So it's clear that they ended up removing that and moving some scenes around. There's a quick scene of C-3PO from the book receiving a message and informing Leia of BB-8's whereabouts. These 3PO scenes are both good, but the writer says they prefer the first appearance in the movie. Okay, if you've just rejoined me going through the spoilers from the novelization, I'm going to have you skip ahead to 26 because I'm still working through them and it's going to take me another 3 minutes. So if you don't want to hear the novelization spoilers, skip ahead. Actually, skip ahead to 27 and I'll be done with them. All right, there is a scene of Princess Leia being informed of the destruction of the Hosnian system and feeling the deaths of the people in the Force. She thinks about how no one should be subjected to the death of an entire world, but she had been subjected to 2 now, and she would not allow to happen again. It also wasn't easily seen above the sky in the castle, as it was in the film. It's confirmed that Han and Leia were husband and wife. General Hux launches something in the book called Seekers to take out the attacking X-Wings on Starkiller Base. He's warned, though, that they will take down TIEs too, but he claims that the collateral damage is necessary for them to win. There is a chase sequence involving a stolen snowspeeder that Rey and Finn use to get to the oscillator, and that, of course, goes back to the toys again and must have gotten left on the cutting room floor because we have a toy of those really cool First Order speeders. Kylo Ren removing his mask for Han is his first time that Han has seen his son as a grown man. Also, Han debated leaving without confronting him in the book, but didn't because he wanted to fulfill Leia's request. And that seemed pretty apparent. They didn't spell it out in the movie, but it seemed like Han was reluctant to go and face Kylo. or Ben. Poe does not fly into the oscillator. There is no trench run in the book. The pilot simply bombed the hole that the detonators exposed. So they may have added that in later on. I don't care. I thought it was cool. Hux rescues Kylo after the Rey fight. And I guess could have taken Finn and Rey, but there was no time, and his instructions from Snoke took precedence over that. He assumed they would die there anyways. The doctor tells Rey that Finn will be fine, although he is in a medically induced coma. R2 has the rest of the map because he cataloged the Imperial archives. He overheard a discussion of how Kylo Ren had said that they held the rest of the map because it was in the archives. That was in the movie. He then powers up and displays the map. And I believe he powers up because Rey shows up for the first time on Dakar, the base, and I'll get to that a little bit later on. Rey has a conversation with Leia in the book before she leaves, where Leia promises her that she will not share the same fate of her son. Interesting. Rey extends the lightsaber towards Luke as an offer and a plea because he's the galaxy's only hope, and then she wonders what will happen next. So the one part about this that seems really interesting is Rey has a conversation with Leia before she leaves where Leia promises her that she will not share the same fate of her son. So that Rey wouldn't? Well, that's interesting. So, again, that fills in some of the gaps that weren't in the film itself. In the visual dictionary, it also talks a little bit about Lor San Tekka. That was Max von Sydow's character from the beginning that gave Poe Dameron the piece of the puzzle to Luke's whereabouts. In the visual dictionary, it says that Lor San Tekka had been around since the Clone Wars, just like Snoke, had seen the rise and fall of the Empire. He was not Force-sensitive, but he was sensitive to the Jedi, was a believer in the Jedi, and actually belonged to a group called Church of the Force. So this, again, brings in the idea that, and this was spelled out in the movie, that the Force had become something of a mythology. And it actually, also in the visual dictionary, it talks about how, General Hux wasn't a big believer in the Force. This was more of much akin to Tarkin, and Darth Vader. So again, echoing A New Hope again. And also in the visual dictionary, the other point I wanted to make was it does explicitly spell out and talk about how Kylo Ren, had Jedi and Sith blood in him, and that he did wipe out the academy that Luke was trying to start. Let me state up front. I do believe that Rey is Luke's daughter. She almost has to be. There was a brief moment where I thought that she was still Han and Leia's daughter, but there were too many circumstances in the movie that didn't make any sense. Like, you could make sense if Kylo turns, that splits up Han and Leia, and Luke was also training Rey. I do believe she was there based off the Force back scene. And again, I'll go through that coming up here in a minute. But I was almost convincing myself that Rey was also Han and Leia's daughter, but because of what happened to Kylo, they were way too scared it was also going to happen to Rey, so they sent Rey off in isolation on Jakku, and then basically made a pact that they were never going to go and engage her, and for fear that they wanted her to live a life, but they knew that if she got involved in anything as it related to the Republic or the Resistance, that she may have fallen to the dark side. But there were too many scenes in the movie with Han and Rey, especially the one on after Maz's castle was blown to bits, and he sees Kylo carrying Rey onto the ship. He makes no mention of that to Leia. He just says, "I saw our son." And even when they go to Starkiller Base, he's doing it. Han is doing it to bring down the shields, not because he's going after Rey. So I'm convinced, and when you go back and you even think about what Maz Kanata says to Rey, it's spelled out pretty explicitly that she's Luke's son, which leaves open who's mom, right? So let's get into the movie a little bit. Just to work through some of the things that just stick out, and I made a list here. But I thought the opening of the film was great, coming down on the shot of the planet with a dark shadow of the finalizer. coming over and, basically casting a shadow over the screen, and then those awesome First Order transports coming down, into the whole opening battle scene on Jakku was just spectacular.